Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Archons and how to know if you may have been targeted by them. So an Archon is one of the types of attachments I talk about in my entity attachments videos. So there's two of those that talk about, it's part 1 and part 2, so I'd recommend watching that for more information. So the Archons are a species of being here on this planet. They are in, spirit form. So you're not gonna, they're not human. It's an alien species that has sort of infiltrated into our planet, and they are a highly advanced, very dark species. So the intent is to control using fear and to sort of have people give away their energy to these beings. So when you hear about like cults or satanic abuse or even narcissistic abuse to a certain extent, a lot of the times it does have an Archon involved that's either controlling a human that is doing these things, or they are just attacking the victim. So the Archons, they understand the laws of the universe, and they're very good at sort of using that knowledge against species that are not quite as evolved or quite as old. So sometimes, a lot of time they will target other species to try to control them, and then once they have control over that species, they sort of siphon it for their energy. So it is sort of like the Matrix in a way. So they still have to follow the same rules of the universe, since they're also in our universe, just like every other being. So while they are highly intelligent, they're not indestructible. They're not, impossible to fight off. It just takes a certain level of knowledge and awareness of them, and fighting them also takes a certain lack of fear. Because the two kinds of main energies that they do feed off of, our fear is number one, and then the second one is like a sexual energy. So that's why, if you've ever met someone or heard of someone who says, oh, I was sexually assaulted beginning ever since I was a kid, and I was, fully assaulted 3 times, 4 times, whatever, and then people are going to look at that person and be like, really? You were assaulted 3 times by 3 different people? Okay, if you say so. And that's sort of exactly what the Archons want, because that person is telling the truth, but the whole idea behind the Archons is they're specifically targeting that person through the people around them, and they're counting on the fact that no one is going to believe them. So if you've ever found yourself sort of isolated, alone, and being sort of attacked at every turn, or from all sides and all angles, if it feels that way, there's probably some kind of Archon energy involved, whether it's influencing the people around you without them realizing it, or if they're specifically targeting you. So in one of my other videos, I talked about how when I was a baby, my mom sort of saw one of them, or felt like some kind of dark being during sleep paralysis. I believe, since this was right after I was born and she was holding me in the rocking chair, I believe it was some kind of Archon coming in that was curious about me and wanted to come see, I believe that's when they sort of started tracking me. And for a long time, I didn't think that I had been targeted by Archons, because I never experienced like an Archon possession. I never experienced like any kind of cultish, well, I guess a narcissistic family is sort of like a cult, but I never experienced like the type of direct kind of like satanic abuse that a lot of the Archons do. And I think the reason for that is because if they came at me head on, then I'd be able to, sort of notice it. But because it was so subtle and it just sort of encapsulated me from all angles, isolated me, made me, feel vulnerable, powerless, etc. growing up. And because it was, I believe it was attacking me through the people around me, specifically family members. So the whole idea was sort of to get me to sort of kill myself, because it wanted, to make me feel alone, isolated, helpless, like humanity is just against me in general. So if you've ever had that sort of feeling based on that like fear and the feeling of like there's no escape, you may have been targeted by the Archons. And then why do they target certain people? They do that because these people are spiritually strong and powerful, because like I said, the Archons are a very advanced species, so they understand sort of the rules of the universe, they understand karma. So rather than just attacking and courting like a lot of less aware beings will do, what they'll do is they'll create systems that people just buy into to just give away their power. That's the whole idea behind the manipulation, because if they're not stealing it from you, if they're not directly taking it, and you're just giving it freely, they're not going to create any negative karma. So that's why, like in the previous video I made when I talked about how to set up defenses against energy vampires, and using like the laws of karma and their weaknesses against them. It's a similar thing with the Archons. They're already aware of that. So we actually had a situation where we were applying for an apartment, my boyfriend and I, and at one point I kind of did like when I was like half awake, I kind of did like a remote viewing of the room, and I was like, oh great, there's an Archon in there. I no longer want to live there anymore. So once I told my boyfriend what I had seen, like I could only look at it for a couple seconds at a time when I was remote viewing it, or remote viewing the apartment, because if I had done it for more than a couple seconds, it would have been able to actually see me. So it still knew something was watching it, like it was aware something was watching it, didn't know who or where or why. All it knew was that it knew it was being watched, but I was so in and out so fast, it wasn't able to pick up on it until I told my boyfriend what was happening, and I was like, yeah, there's like an Archon in there, I saw it. It's not aware of me, and then it immediately became aware of both of us. So then what my boyfriend did is he, without my knowledge, because I would have told him to not do this, he said he sent a bunch of feelings of inevitability and like these waves of energy at the Archon in the apartment. And I'm just like, dude, why did you do that? Like, the Archons understand karma. You just opened the door wide open for it to attack you. And it did end up sort of like attacking both of us, actually, because it attacked him, and then I was just kind of in the peripheral, sort of watching it happen. And it was, you know, these intense feelings of doubt and of like doubting everything is sort of how it reacted to, you know, because once you open that door with attacking, it's going to attack back. They understand karma, and they can use those things against you. So as long as you're kind of aware, moral of the story is, as long as you're aware of that law of the universe, it can't hurt you. You just have to set up your defenses. Like, if you do this, this will happen. If you attack me, this will happen. And it'll leave you alone, because it's not going to open up the door for you to attack it back. They don't work that way. They're very evolved. They're intelligent. So the good news is that you're probably, you know, not going to be necessarily courted by one, but if you're not setting up any kind of boundaries or defenses against other energies in general, if your door is just, you know, may not be wide open, but it's sure not locked, they're going to just come right in, because they don't, you know, I mean, they may come in if you're being targeted by them, because they aren't being told that there's consequences, basically. So the energy that the Archons send off, it's usually almost, I wouldn't say it's subconscious, because you're definitely able to pick up on it, but it is sort of an undercurrent of like doubt, of fear. They all have kind of a different, they're not like exactly the same being replicated, they're all, you know, a little bit different. Some of them might use like the sexual energy, the sexual abuse over and over, things like that, when everyone's like turning against you. It may be in the form of narcissistic abuse, where, for example, only one child is being targeted by the parents secretly. So when they try to come forward and speak about it, everyone's like, oh yeah, that didn't happen, we would have known, or, you know, we don't believe you. So that's the whole goal of the Archons. It's to make you feel like you, I wouldn't say going crazy. I mean, they can try to make you feel that way, but it's more just to make you feel like alone, like completely alone. Because when you're alone, then you put yourself in a box, and you also start to distrust all of humanity, or at least you see humanity as bad. But what you're not realizing is that the Archons are attacking you through other people, or other attachments could be attacking you. So, you know, obviously this applies a lot to me. I'm just like, why is everyone, you know, out to get me? Or why does it seem like people are constantly like glaring at me, or, you know, like cutting me off in traffic, or getting angry? Like, I'm like, what is wrong with these people? And then over time, I started realizing that it's the entities attached to them that are, they're you know, they're upset, they're angry, that they can sort of sense, you know, that I'm able, not only am I aware of them, I'm not afraid of them, and I'm able to remove them. I would never do that without, you know, the person who there is attached to explicit permission, or they would have to come to. I'm not going to go out and be like, hey, you have an entity attachment. Do you want me to remove it? You know, that's not something I'm going to do, but then everything started to make more sense, and it made me less distrustful of humanity, because I realized it's just the attachments. I would, not all the time, but most of the time, I would say, for me personally. So that's sort of, I don't know, if you're being targeted by the Archons, it might not be like a direct attack, as in like a direct possession of trying to destroy you. It could be that way. It's definitely possible, but some of the more subtle signs are the ones I talked about in this video, when like you're being attacked at all angles. Everywhere you turn, it seems like there's just someone telling you that, you know, your view of reality isn't real, or you feel completely alone, or you feel alone, and the people around you are sort of telling you like, oh, well, there's just, you know, maybe not something wrong with you, but, you know, they don't see it. So, you know, I realized some of the things I talked about could just be someone who's, you know, paranoid, or has some other kind of mental illness. But the difference with this is that you're trying to fit in, you're trying to do the right thing, you're, you know, trying to connect with people. If it's early on in your journey and you're aware of, you could be being targeted in some form, but they just keep attacking you and you don't understand why. So that's kind of that type of energy that I'm talking about. It's not like looking like, oh, people are out to get me, like I'm super paranoid. It's more just like that kind of feeling starts to sort of, you start to just trust people less and keep more of a distance with them, because of how many times you've been betrayed, such as, and, you know, every single relationship ends in some kind of betrayal, or has lots of betrayal. That is another way where people are just like distancing themselves from other people. And that's exactly what the Archons want. So I hope that made sense. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I will see you soon. Bye.